Hello everybody. Next up, were one allowed, you would have a choice of motorways to use, either the traditional M1-M6 combination or the M40-M42 route as we go away to Villa. Kick-off on Wednesday evening is 8:15 p.m, so you may have to change your bedtime. BT Sport is your channel for this one, with the eyes up Mother Brown people trying to make sense of it all for about 7:45. All we'd really need is someone to make sense of them. Villa then. Well, they're a couple of games behind the times at the moment, COVID putting paid to their home games against Spurs and Everton earlier this month. Since they got the all clear, and before last weekend, they'd won 1, which was a fairly routine 2-0 victory over a downwardly mobile Newcastle, and lost 2 away at Burnley and Man City. Last weekend, they were a little bit fortunate to come away from the trip to St Mary's with all 3 points. Southampton ought to have had a penalty when Cash moved his hand towards the ball. The decision to play on owing more to Mike Dean's VAR desire to get involved from Stockley Park than from any desire to see the laws of the game enforced. Dean spotted an imperceptible touch on Cash's thigh to rule out a cast-iron spot kick in a complete 180-degree turnabout from the way that the laws on that matter are meant to work. A massive deflection from close range that hits an arm is one thing, but a brush which had no effect on an arm already moving towards the ball anyway is a completely different matter, as Dean knows full well. Add to that a late equaliser for Southampton that was disallowed because one of Danny Ings' kidneys was in an offside position or something, and you can see why an otherwise dominant Southampton might have been slightly miffed. Overall, Villa have gained 32 points from their 19 matches played so far. This has left them in 9th place, which is 3 points and 4 places behind us at the time of writing. A better goal difference on their part means that a win for them would actually see them overtake us to go 5th. Other games being played might throw that theory out of the window by the time you read this. Daisy, the socially distanced and support bubbling personal assistant with a beautiful smile, was looking forward to another evening being fed fruit on the chaise longue, but Villa messed that up by actually becoming one of the few clubs to go out and buy a player during the winter window. The fee to bring in Morgan Sanson, isn't that a private bank based in Canary Wharf? From Marseille, is a basic £14 million with a further £1.5 million to be paid in add-ons. The 26-year-old midfielder, whose international career seems to have stalled at under-21 level across the channel, was an unused sub in the Southampton match. So nothing of note, says Daisy, who adds, "That's me done. If you need me, I'll be on the chaise longue, and don't forget the grapes." Talented idiot Jack Grealish is of course their main man. His propensity to dive is right down there with the likes of Salah and Mane. Who can forget his squeal of agony at our place, when not only had no connection been made with his leg, he then threw himself in the completely wrong direction before clutching the wrong leg to the one that was supposed to have been giving him so much bother. Only a complete tool would ever be conned by such action. Unfortunately, being a complete tool is a prerequisite for select group status in the refereeing fraternity. Of course, Grealish himself is no stranger to tool status. Since we last met, he's picked up an £80,000 fine and a piffling 9-month driving ban. A figure that seems remarkably short given the whole catalogue of offences involved, the list of which he appeared to be trying to tick off one by one. He can count himself doubly lucky that the allegation of him slurring his words and smelling of intoxicating liquor at the time wasn't backed up by anything as useful as a breath test or a sample of some sorts. Grealish's spokesman claimed that the player was genuinely sorry. Yeah, I'll leave you to make your own mind up on that one. I've been impressed by their keeper, Emiliano Martinez. In fact, I was impressed last season when he came in for Lino at Arsenal, when the former was injured. I'd have stuck with Martinez at Arsenal and made Lino battle for his place, but Arteta clearly had other ideas. Finding himself a season on the bench to look forward to, Martinez shifted one down the alphabetical table in exchange for first 11 football, and he was on splendid form in the Southampton match by all accounts. They have 2 on the sick list at present. Striker Wesley has been out all season with a serious knee injury and is going through rehab at the moment. Also missing will be defender Courtney Hauser, whose name looks like a spelling error. Interesting chap, Hauser. His middle names are Paul, after Weller of Jam and Style Council fame, and Duncan, after Ferguson of Everton and Barlini fame or infamy. Hauser has had a scan on a foot problem and will be out for 4 to 6 weeks. Let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football. Well, there goes that transfer window. Yeah, me neither. Fun though it would have been to see the perma-grinned Jim White take time out from issuing propaganda statements on behalf of all and sundry in a vain attempt to persuade his ever-dwindling Sky audience that something interesting is happening. There was an interesting documentary about the mountains of northern Tanzania on the box for me to fall asleep in front of instead. White is supposed to have come out with a statement to the effect that Mr. Moyes has been told, or had been told on the morning of deadline day, that he had £20 to £30 million to spend on a striker if he wanted it. Mr. Moyes, for his part, suggested that the players he had been interested in weren't available, and he wasn't going to sign someone for the sake of it, which is a fair point, and a nicely played forward defensive shot played straight along back down the pitch to the owners. Meanwhile, should you happen to find yourself talking with the aforementioned Mr. White, you might care to ask him whether he thinks it's a hallmark of a well-run club to sell its only real striker without having a replacement lined up, and to conduct its business through the mouthpiece of a tabloid radio station whose utterances carry spin of such Muralitharan-esque proportions that an immediate air of distrust rises as soon as his mouth opens. Let's move on, shall we, to last weekend. Disappointing, wasn't it? Mind you, Sky's coverage plumbed new depths. There was a pre-match programme that I switched on out of boredom, just to see what they were going to say about us. Half an hour of an interviewer telling Klopp how wonderful he was, and that was it. We were covered much in the same way as a nutjob party would be covered by a news broadcaster at election time. You know, the sort of thing. A full list of other clubs involved in this afternoon's match is available on our website if you can be bothered to look. The commentary and the post-match discussion would have had you thinking we'd just seen the greatest thing since sliced bread, rather than a team which, apart from 3 particular moments, gave Fabianski one of his quieter evenings. The goals were very disappointing. Cresswell was clearly terrified of going anywhere near Salah for the first, the cheat already having conned John Moss earlier on in the game. The second was also disappointing in the extreme. All the good defensive work we've built up over the last couple of months went out the window as flashbacks of our conceding Route 1 goals from our own corners came back to haunt us. The third was a good goal, I suppose, though I'd rather we put a tackle in than stood and watched it. From my point of view, it appeared that we were beaten from the off. We played the reputation rather than what was actually in front of us. The players didn't look as if they thought they could win, and if you go in with that mindset, you're going to lose more than you win. Looking forward now, and we still have just the 2 in the infirmary. Arthur was described as needing a few more months, which would take him up to around April, whilst Randolph is still recovering from the unspecified knock that has seen David Martin added to the bench in recent times. We can now bid official welcome to Jesse Lingard. His signing came too late for the Liverpool match, and he won't have had much training with his new teammates. I would expect his involvement, if any, would come from the bench on Wednesday evening, possibly at the expense of Odebeku. I've already got into my misgivings about the Lingard deal, though those have little to do with the player himself, and more to do with the club's transfer policy, which continues to lack any sense of coherence. Meanwhile, we welcome Lingard to the madhouse and wish him well. Prediction? Well, this is all about reaction. The players should be feeling that they did not do themselves justice at the weekend, and the reaction to that should be that someone is going to suffer. If Moyes can get them thinking like that, we should be able to take the game to them in the same way as we did at Palace. We need to show the sort of swagger that sort of shrug our shoulders and laugh at Palace's opener before going on to tear them a new one. For their point, or for their part even, they will have an eye on our 5th spot, and I think that this will be a close encounter of the draw kind. So the £2.50 that Daisy informed me this morning that I have available to spend on match wagers will be going on a 2-2 draw. Make it so, Mr. Winston, make it so. Enjoy the game.